Hello and welcome to another How to Code Well tutorial. Today we're going to focus more on Jekyll and how we can structure the layouts and structure the templates that we created in the previous tutorial. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll put a link in the description below. But we were talking then about the content and how we can inject the content into the layout pages. Now, one thing I didn't mention last time was that we don't necessarily need to keep the same default directory structure that we have in Jekyll. For example, at the moment, everything in the includes folder is just literally in here, so the footer and the header, right? But if you think about a blog, in fact, if you take a look at the blog that I'm trying to convert into Jekyll, it has all sorts of templates, it has all sorts of layouts and so forth that you want to kind of put in their own little folders, if you will. I guess in the WordPress sense, because this was built in WordPress, you would think of widgets, and you might have a plugin or a widget, and that would have its own folder structure perhaps. So like, for example, we've got a primary navigation going along the top. We've got a secondary here, which is like the sidebar navigation, if you will. And then we've got some more navigation down here. We've got tagging, and then we've got all of this navigation to deal with. So there's quite a lot of stuff to actually segment from this website and convert over to Jekyll. And really, ideally, it needs to be portioned in its own sort of folder. So you would have like a folder just for the header, you would have a folder just for the sidebar. So there's a lot of stuff going on this website, perhaps a little bit too much. Also, a lot of these things share different assets, different schemes, different styles and so forth. So for example, the color schemes here, that's shared all the way through. And also it knows what page you're on, so home. So there is some sort of intelligence. So if I went to the blog, for example, it will be highlighted with blog. Plus, each page comes with a strapline as well as a breadcrumb. But it's good to think about how a web page is built up in general, regardless of what tool you use, whether it's WordPress, whether it's Jekyll or whatever. It's good to build the templating in such a way that you can reuse things and you can inject variables into those templates and so forth. Now, in the previous tutorial, what we did, if I go back here, is we just bunged everything in this includes, and we had the footer and the header. Now, if you think about a header and a footer, they've actually got quite a lot to them. So, for instance, with the header, you've got the navigation, you've got the breadcrumbs, and you've got the strapline, right? And the footer, you've got even more. You've got more navigation, you've got social links, you've got YouTube links, you've got Facebook links, and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff, right? And then again, you've got the sidebar and so forth. So really the ideal situation is to lay out the templates, or lay out the layouts, I should say, in Jekyll's terms, in such a way that makes sense. So just throwing everything in the header file, throwing everything in the footer file isn't great when you want to reuse things. So what I'm going to do is actually create some of my own directories within these things, and it's perfectly acceptable to do so. So for example, in the includes, I'm going to create a new folder in here, and I'm just going to do header, right? And another folder in here, called footer. So now I'm starting to give some structure to what's in these include folders. And then in here, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create a file in here, and I'm going to call this base. Okay, base.html. If you've used Twig or Symfony before, then having base template files should be something familiar. Okay, let's save that. And also I'm going to have base in here as well, base.html. And then what I'm going to do is in header, I'm just going to copy this and put it in head here, put it in the base, save that. Likewise with the footer, I'm just going to copy that, put it in here, like so, save that, good. Okay, I'm going to delete these, and in the header, where we've got this is a header and then we've got the navigation structure, actually that navigation structure should be a menu, and perhaps I might want to use that menu later on. So for example, if I go back to this blog here, we've got the menu at the top, but we've also got right at the bottom, we've got lots of menus here, and I might want to perhaps have a replication of that menu somewhere on the page. Maybe it's on a sidebar or somewhere. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder. Oops, sorry. A new folder in here called menus. And I'm going to have a new file in here, and I'm going to save that as primary.html. And so we've got a little bit of structure going on here: footer, header, and menus. And in the header, we're going to take the whole thing, save that, put that into the primary navigation. I mean, you could call that navigation, I suppose. Whatever. It's just words at the end of the day. It's what defines those things, the elements that you use. So we've got, this is exactly the same as it was before. So it's just using site.data.menu.pages, which is up in here. Okay, so we have the base. Now this obviously needs to include the primary. So what I'm going to do is just copy, I'm just going to copy this portion here. So we've got header, base, and it's going to be menus / primary. So .html, save that. And then in footer, yeah, I'm just going to leave that like that at the moment. Then what we need to do is actually tie these together, because at the moment with our layouts it just goes straight to header. Well, in fact what we need to do is go header / and then base.html, and then footer / base.html, like so. Okay, so if that works, then we shouldn't actually see any difference, because all we've done is just change the structure of these files. So what I'm going to do is just refresh this page. Fingers crossed. Yeah, it looks good. We've got the header and we've got the footer. I'm just going to test that out. Let's go to the header here, and let's just put an exclamation mark in that. Save view. This is a header. Boom. Yeah, good. Okay, so that's kind of a way that we can isolate certain pieces of the templates, or certain parts of the includes, I should say. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is on here, I mentioned that a lot of these have strap lines, right? So a lot of these things have, or some of them, I mean that doesn't have one. This one I think has one, yep. And I believe that one has something else. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a strapline variable. Now this obviously is a custom variable, and we're going to put that into the header block. So what we're going to do is, right. So where we've got the pages, so we've got about MD and index.md, we can actually define our own variables that we can inject into these include files or into the layout files. So in here, for example, I'm in the front matter here, we're going to put in strap line and then colon, and we're just going to do something like that, if I can spell my name right. Okay, and also on index we're going to do the same. So I'll just copy that through. So UK based web developer, like that, and I'll save that. Okay, so how do we actually get to these variables? So we've just created a variable called strapline. We've put it in the about page as well as the index page. Now anything within here can be accessed through the variable or the object called page, right? So this would be page.layout, this would be page.strapline. So if we scroll up to header, for instance, where we've including the menus primary, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new file in here called strapline.html, like so, and I'm just going to do p, then I'm going to do, page.strapline. and close that off. I'm also going to put in a horizontal rule, like so, and save that. Okay, that obviously didn't work. Let's have a look and see what's going on. So in the About page, this is where we're at. We've got strapline, and if we go into head here in base, we are going to the primary, which is here. Oh, I haven't actually included the file. So what we need to do in here, forgive me, is include strapline. So this is not in its own file, so we don't need to go into any other directory. It is literally, can I save that? Oh, no, strapline, I thought that was in my clipboard. Include strapline, so hopefully that should work now. Let's refresh. No. Include strapline.html. Include strapline.html. Let's see what's going on in here. So error exists, could not locate strapline. Have I spelt it correctly? Probably not. Let's do a rename. No, I have strapline. Okay, well, you know, that spelling is the same at least. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I get this. Forgive me. I'm getting confused. So the include here is, it needs to go straight into header. Moron. Like that. Okay, so because for instance, what we've literally done is put strapline in here. So when with base we need to go, because it goes back to includes header strapline. Save that, refresh the page, and there we go. We've got the strapline. Thank goodness. So okay, so we've got the strapline for that, and also with the home page as well. So what happens if I don't have a strapline? What happens if a page doesn't have a strapline? I put the horizontal rule in there to show that the strapline will still be included, but the variable won't be used because it doesn't exist. Let me do a demonstration. So with with the about bit, I'm going to remove strapline. So we're going to remove that, save that. So we've got the strapline for the home page. For the about page, we don't have a strapline. However, the horizontal rule is still used because we're still including it, right? So we're still including in base, we're still including it. So what we could do is create an if statement around this to include the strapline if we have a strapline. And the way we would do this is using this liquid formatting. So we do percentage if page dot strap line. So if that is true, then we close that off, and then we do like with the for eaches, we do end if. Whoops, all one word, and save that. Okay, so if we were to refresh this, we don't have a strapline. We don't have that horizontal rule anymore because we don't have the strapline. And then if I was to put it back, so Control Z on that, we do. So that's how we can create logic around the pages based on the variables that we can give, and also a demonstration on creating custom variables in Jekyll. So the use case for Jekyll is becoming more and more apparent to me. I can understand why lots of bloggers, especially technical bloggers, are now using Jekyll to create their websites. And I'm totally blown away by the ease that I can actually develop something in Jekyll. The fact that all the stuff I've got is in these markdown pages, and it's keeping the content away from the layout. All I need to do is define a series of variables up here, and depending on those variables, depending on those values, the templates, the layouts will change. They'll include different bits and pieces. So for example, I could have a variable in here to include or not to include a sidebar or what have you. So we'll get on to all of the sidebars and stuff later on perhaps, but I'm starting to see real benefits of using Jekyll, and I'm going to continue to explore this a little bit further, and perhaps we'll go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole of Jekyll. Now, obviously, the blog that I've got, the current blog that I've got, it looks totally different from this, and what I'm concentrating on right now is just getting used to Jekyll, getting used to the layouts, the flows, the logic, and so forth. I'm not necessarily worried too much right now about the way it looks, so I'm just caring about the structure and how I can structure the code in a logical sort of ways that it will make my life a lot easier, because at the end of the day, the move from this monolithic WordPress blog to something a little more easier to maintain will be fantastic, because all I want to do at the end of the day, if I can get to this and just work on this markdown and just create a page, fire out a load of markdown, define a bunch of variables, and then everybody's happy, then that's fantastic, right? And there's lots of wins, like I said, with Jekyll about how fast it is, because it's static content at the end of the day. It'll also mean that there's no logging in to anything, which is a big win in my book. Another thing we can also do is change the folder structure of the data. So up here where we've got the menu data, we can actually put that in another folder within the underscore data folder. So if we did a new folder, and let's do menus. Okay, if we created a new file in here and we called this one primary, for instance, .json, save that, and if we took all of that, put that into the primary.json file, saved, and deleted that one. So now it's data, or underscore data, menus, and then primary.json. In the primary HTML, we now can change this. So insight data menus, and then it's primary dot pages. Save that, refresh the page. Hopefully nothing has changed. That's perfectly fine. And just to prove that this has worked, we can just put an exclamation mark after each one. Save that, like so. So this is a good way of creating things that relate to each other. So for example, I've got data menus primary, and I've got includes menus primary. So you can kind of see some consistency going on here, which is fantastic when building websites and applications and such. So I'm going to continue on with my discovery of Jekyll. I'll be creating some more videos and so forth in the hope of moving some more bits and pieces from my existing blog to here. So I'm going to deal with styling later down the line. I'm not too worried about that at the moment. So I'm going to leave it there. If you've enjoyed this series, then do subscribe to follow the next ones. I'm going to do some more on Jekyll as I get to grips with it. Also, do subscribe to pick up the web chats and the tutorials that I do each week. Thanks again for watching. Happy coding. See you again soon. Cheers. Bye.